You don't want to overreact to a small sample size here. However, every time Soto has come up in a big spot, he has failed to get the job done. He's had plenty of opportunity here, Hannah. It makes you think, why do you think the slow start for Juan Soto?
Well, it is a small sample size, and it could just be that he's human. I understand he got off to a fantastic start last year in New York with the Yankees, and of course that was a different kind of pressure being in your contract year. But I immediately thought of the start he got off to in San Diego after he got traded there from the Nationals, because to me that feels more analogous to right now, because he was coming off of rejecting this huge money offer from the Washington Nationals. That was him saying, I'm worth more than whatever they offered him, $450 million, which is the same kind of position he's in now. And if you look at that, so this is looking at the OPS he posted that first half season in San Diego was pretty similar. It's a little bit worse even than through the first 18 games this year. And what you're seeing in the middle, that 930 OPS, more like what we expect out of Juan Soto, is that following year. He played a full season with San Diego, he played all 162 games. He was fantastic. We think of him as not getting along super well with the Padres. That was, his most difficult stop. But he really did put it together in that second season. So to me, it could be a little bit like that. You're coming off of this very big public global assertion of how much you think you are worth in both cases. And in both cases, he struggled a little bit out of the gate, but then he resumed his Juan Soto self. It also just, I think, is worth mentioning that, again, this is the floor for Juan Soto, but this is what the floor for Juan Soto looks like, which is he's not striking out a lot, he's walking a lot, and he's getting on base a lot. He's not like a super high average, high slugging percentage guy. He always is an on-base guy. So this is what that looks like in practice. This is why people say, oh, he's such a sure thing. This is why you give him the huge $700+ million contract, because even when he isn't doing those other things, he's still going to walk a lot and get on base a lot.
Yeah, and that's the good point of it. The thing to me is he hasn't had his typical at-bats. He hasn't looked good. He hasn't looked in rhythm. He hasn't looked, especially with men on base, he's looked different. And where's the body language? Where's the Soto shuffle they talked about on the telecast the other night? Where's the little thing, the swag, all that stuff? That's who he's supposed to be, and he just hasn't looked like that guy. And then in that game yesterday, he's chasing balls out of the zone, which he never does. So you just wonder what is going on inside of his head. Is there something going on in terms of feeling the pressure, feeling the expectation? You wouldn't think so, because he's performed at every stage. San Diego maybe being the exception there, but even in the World Series at 19, 20 years old, he handled everything so well that you wouldn't expect this. But there is something odd about the way he's swinging the bat right now.
Well, there's clearly something going on. It's a fact. Look at the numbers. I don't care. There's just an 18-game sample size. Or to your point, look at the numbers. Look at the body language. He's not the Juan Soto that we expected. Maybe the most disappointing thing for me is that I thought he was going to hit the ground running here, just like he did with the Yankees. No worries about first year with the Mets. He's going to go nuts, and that's been disappointing. Andy, what are you hearing here about Soto, how he's handling the transition from the Yankees to the Mets?
Well, I'm glad that Carlos Mendoza said he's human, because that's the key point, is that this is somebody who has such an amazing track record at such a young age that perhaps that's easy to forget sometimes. But this is a young man going through a major transition, someone who had a really wonderful, magical experience with the Yankees last year, and who, by the way, is fitting in really well with the Mets, personality-wise. But still, it's a transition from one great job to another cool job that's going to become a great job, but that's a process to go through. Now, I spent much of this week at Yankee Stadium covering that Yankees-Royals series, and this was a topic in the Yankee clubhouse. People who care about Soto, who really like him, talking about this. So here's some of what I heard from the Yankee side, and they have great perspective. I heard what Hannah said about this kind of reminds some guys there about how he was with the Padres at first, and of course he was fine there. He'll be fine with the Mets, and he will, of course, be fine with the Mets. He's too young and too good.
But he got traded there. This is the place he chose.
Just the idea of having to. There was a thought inside the Yankee clubhouse that I understood the difference, but that he maybe felt like he had to be a guy there because he was new, feeling your way around the new workplace, that kind of thing. And the other thing, one thing I might push back a little on what Carlos said in that press conference is what I heard inside the Yankees was the difference between being a new Yankee and a new Met. This is what I heard. When Soto got there, Aaron Judge, the captain, said to him, Juan, you don't have to be a guy. You don't have to be a star. We got a lot of guys here, a lot of well-paid, famous, I'm paraphrasing, basically the message, guys here. So just be Juan. Do your thing. Be a player. And with the Mets, I think there's an expectation on him from some of the fan base that he's supposed to be a savior. He's a guy that he's not Lindor, he's not Judge in terms of like, I want to lead, I want to be out front, I want the spotlight. He wants to do his job and do it well. So there's a big difference. I know it's contract year pressure, but remember in the World Series, we talked about this in your radio show the other day, the World Series was billed as Judge versus Ohtani.
Yes.
It wasn't viewed as Soto versus Betts. Those guys were the undercard. Soto's not been the guy. And he was in Washington since when he was much younger.
But he wanted to be the guy, apparently. That's why he went to the Mets.
When you
that doesn't
get
mean
paid,
it's not a transition as a human being.